Rob Simpson with you, cracking knuckleheads, yada, yada, yada. VancouverHockeyInsider.com. Pleased to welcome aboard another Rob, Rob Williams, the sports editor for Daily Hive. Hello, Robert.
Hey Rob, how are you?
Not too shabby. I just did a couple other programs out east talking about the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm going to start with a question for you that we kind of left off those, covered a lot of ground, but Vitaly Kravtsov, how much does he play a part in this training camp? And is there a possibility we see this guy in the lineup?
It's a very good question. I think he's a bit of a wild card coming into training camp, right? I think he's a player that when I remember when the Canucks acquired him, they gave up Will Lockwood to get him, pretty low risk move. They bring in a Russian player, a guy that was a top 10 pick,
Yeah.
automatically makes him very intriguing, was still young when he came to the Canucks. Um, didn't really do much, short sample size, and then bolts to the KHL. I thought we'd see him around Vancouver about as often as Nikita Tramkin. And lo and behold, they re-sign him this summer and he's coming back. I mean, we'll see, right? Like he had a really good year in the KHL, was among the leading scorers in the league. But what does that mean, really, right? Like Josh Levo had an unbelievable year. I don't know if people would be doing somersaults for Josh Levo. So at the very least, look, he's got pedigree, which is why he was drafted so high. He's coming in feeling a lot better about himself. Maybe you can parlay that into a spot in the lineup. At the very least, I guess we'll see him for the Abbotsford Canucks. But I'm waiting to see. I think I'm intrigued to see what he'll be able to do and if he'll be able to claim a regular spot in the lineup.
One thought on the KHL too, when you're talking about, what does it really mean? I can't even think of the kid's name at this point, but he was essentially a seventh defenseman for the Boston Bruins back in like 05, 06, and he went on to lead the KHL in blue line scoring for I think the next 2 or 3 seasons. So it's hard to say. There's skill, some high skill sets in that league offensively, but in terms of depth, it's relatively questionable, and it's not even close. AHL is better league all the way around. Um, Here's a little follow up to that question about the Russians. So, didn't the uh, didn't the Canucks just finish purging all of their Russians?
Yeah, they load
Seriously, like
it.
it was like, oh my God, Kuzmenko, oh my God, Mikheyev, oh my God, Zador.
Well,
Where
they
are you
need
guys?
well, they needed a translator for Kuzmenko when he first arrived, if you
Yeah.
remember, right? So
And
yeah,
even Podkolzin. I mean,
yeah,
Podkolzin's not a Milstein guy.
yeah.
Kraftov's a Milstein guy. Kuzmenko. So there's a relationship there, but it's odd.
Yeah, you always wonder when there's a Dan Milstein client that comes to the Canucks if because they obviously had a close relationship with that agent. If that was part of
Could have.
discussions with another player maybe as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't have high hopes. I'm not banking anything. I don't think anybody should be picking Kravtsov in their hockey pool, but I will be interested to see how he performs in preseason. And I think he has the potential to be one of these guys where everyone is like the spotlight will be on him in preseason. And I think he's got talent. Like remember Daniel Sprong came in and wowed fans when he first joined the Canucks in preseason, but it didn't really last very long. The key will be can he have success, and then can he make it count, and can he make it last?
That sums up Spronger, by the way. Um, I kind of point to key number one here. We'll get to Petey in a minute, but the fact that Demko's got this deal, new deal, and clean bill of health, apparently, not just apparently, but obviously, because I mean, holy crap, it's been a very unpredictable couple of seasons, couple different types of injuries. Apparently, he's 100% because they are full steam ahead with Demko and Kevin Lankinen. And why wouldn't they be? If this guy's healthy, they are in great shape in the most important position on the ice.
I mean, that's there's so much wishing and hoping going into this season for the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, I think, it's to steal Jim Rutherford's line for a couple of years ago, if everything goes right,
Yeah.
this could be a very good team. Like, like they have the potential to have the best goaltending in the league. They have the potential to have a much improved defense, a pretty good defense when you have you've got Quinn Hughes playing 28 minutes a night. You're going to be pretty good on the back end, and but there's a lot of wishing and hoping, and because you're wishing and hoping on basically all of your centers,
Yeah.
and you're wishing and hoping with Thatcher Demko and net. Is he healthy? Can he stay healthy? We've seen it with some players, right? Where there's some players that seemingly are just injury prone beyond belief, and then string together a few years of good health. Remember I mean, Chris Tanev was the most injury prone guy in the league when he was in Vancouver. He goes to Calgary and Dallas and Toronto. I don't know if you've seen his games played since he left Vancouver. He's barely missed any games since he left the Canucks. So can Demko follow a similar path? I think that the worrisome part there, where Chris Tanev, it was a new broken bone or a missing teeth or something else. It was always one of those types of injuries. With Demko, the fear is that this is a nagging injury that's going to haunt him and keep flaring up.
Right.
Hopefully, those injury troubles are behind him. It would be great to see him have be at full health for a full season, and see what they could do with that net.
Yeah. Well, they've dedicated a lot to him. So I mean, they've committed to him. And when you first brought that up, I thought of Philip Heedle's name because here's a guy whose highest games played in a season was 74, and he's had a couple of wacky injuries. And last year posted 6 points in 15 games after joining the Canucks in the JT Miller trade. So he's a question mark. But Demko's health would be wish one. The bounce back for Petey, that would be Elias Pettersson, number one center, is obviously uh, wish number two, if not number one.
It's massive. Yeah. I mean, I believe, I don't know what to expect from Demko's knee. Like, I feel like I don't have the medical qualifications to give a good guess on that.
Come on, doctor.
But but Elias Pettersson, it I know he had the knee tendonitis issues, but I think so much of what was bothering him was between the ears last season. And
Okay.
I think having a full summer of training, resetting his mind, not having the drama with JT Miller around, not having the media storm that was around that whole situation too. I think that is something that bothers Petey. He's not someone that craves the media spotlight. He doesn't like it. He always has that line about not wanting to give us a headline. I wish he would be able to get through that and just be able to care less about what we think or what's said about him. But I do think that a lot of that noise is going to be quietened down. He does need to have a good start to the year, though. I mean, if he has a rough first 10 games, the pressure will be ramped up. So a good start, I think, will be really key for Pettersson. But it's a player I believe in. I think that he's got too much talent. We've seen him put it together before. I think last year is the outlier, and I think that we're going to see a return of the old Pettersson coming up next season.
I agree with you there, and I know Canucks fans are hoping that's the case. I like your comment about the D. I think there's good balance there. They're instilling a little bit of youth potentially, and I just kind of like the way it stacks up. There's some physicality there as well. Um, would you agree to some extent or completely that the bottom six up front, and I know Kiefer Sherwood was a man among boys last year in terms of his all around game, but offensively contributing, that bottom six is potentially a question mark.
Yeah, I mean, again, the question mark, it starts at center. I think they've got a lot of winger depth. I think I do feel good about their ability to put two good wingers on a third line. Is that going to be Nils Höglander and Kiefer Sherwood, or take your pick, Drew O'Connor? They got lots and lots of options there. Will we see? I think the Abbey guys from last season are going to get a long look.
Yeah,
Um, I think we're going to see Linus Karlsson probably make this team.
yeah,
Archie Baines has a really good shot at making the team. So, can those guys take the next step? Because they've looked really good in Abbotsford. I haven't been blown away with them at the NHL level, though. So, can they take that next step and become every day in the lineup players? Can they be even better than that? Can they be a third line guys, and fight for ice time there? Um, but you've got, who's your third line center right now? I think it's probably on paper, it's probably Teddy Bluger. I think people are hoping it's going to be Atu Ratu. Ratu though, he's coming on. He missed games in the AHL playoffs due to injury, so he's got to battle back from that. Hopefully, he had a good summer of training. We've like we were saying with Pedersen. If your off-season training is interrupted, it can stunt your development. It can stunt your ability to come into training camp at 100%. So, um, it would be a great situation if Atu Ratu takes the next step and he's the third line center, but I'm not sure what we're going to see from him. So that's another guy that I think there's going to be like definitely a spotlight on him in training camp. Like what are we going to see from Ratu? Because Teddy Bluger, I like Teddy Bluger as a player. I think he's a valuable piece, and I think he can play third line center in a pinch, but he's definitely more well suited to fourth line center. So if he can slot in there where you feel really good about your fourth line center and have Ratu contribute more offense on the third line, I think that'd be a nice result for the Canucks if that happens.
Carlson's kind of my wild card in camp because if confidence is everything, and man, oh man, he he was lights out in the postseason for the Calder Cup title. So that to me is the guy that could slot in there, and he can play any forward position. So I mean that's a factor for the Canucks there. I mentioned the strength of the D and what I liked about the balance. The Tyler Myers and Derek Forbert, big fellas, can they sustain throughout the course of this season? It seems like Myers has simplified things and has improved in general picture over the last couple of seasons. Any thoughts on the big boys back there?
Yeah. Yeah, Myers, I mean, he was the whipping boy among with fans because of the big contract. I think that's most of that's gone away. He doesn't have the big contract anymore, but he's also, like you say, he simplified his game. Um, you know, my one concern with him is father time catches up with everyone at some point. At what point does that happen with Myers? Because he's aged pretty gracefully for the Canucks. There's not a lot to choose between Myers in his early 30s versus Myers in his mid 30s. So how does he go through the rigors of another NHL season? He's been pretty durable for them as well. So can he stay healthy? Can he play at the same level as he did before? I think he can, but that is a concern there. Forbert, the challenge for him is staying healthy. I think he was a nice addition to their blue line last season. Good on the penalty kill. A nice guy to have on your third pairing, a low maintenance guy that just kind of goes out there and does the things you'd expect of a big, third pair defenseman. So yeah, I think you need an element on that of that. There's also going to be a ton of focus on all the young blue liners with Elias Pettersson uh, and Tom Willander coming to camp. But I do think pairing one of those guys up with a guy like Forbert probably makes a lot of sense going into the season.
Yeah, Forbert's health might have factored in, but just consistency is obviously huge for him. And you already mentioned though, with Quinn Hughes eating up so much time up top, he kind of de-emphasizes some of the responsibilities down low. It this I know it's Patrick Alveen's team, but Trader Jim is always looming above. Is this team, do you sense? I mean, because we heard all about the Marco Rossi talk. He signed his extension with the Minnesota Wild. We're talking about second line center.
Mhm.
You think the marketplace is still open and will remain open as we get closer and into this season in terms of that forward group?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see what happens when you think about what Jim Rutherford said going into the offseason. I mean, he basically drew a line in the sand and said, like, we're going to be acquiring a second line center.
Right,
And it hasn't happened. We're still waiting for it.
right.
Now, the Canucks have not been shy. This Canucks management group has not been shy about pulling the trigger on a trade. And in particular, they've made a lot of moves in September, in October before the season begins. So I will be curious to see if a move is made kind of at the 11th hour. However, those moves they've not tended to be, for a marquee player like a second line center. So, Mason McTavish, if he's even available, I don't know if that's the move that we're going to see coming right into the season. So at this point, I think I might be surprised if they actually pull off a deal for like a bona fide number two center. It sounds like they're going to maybe see what Filipino can do. I still wonder if they circle back on Jack Roslovic. I wonder if this is some posturing. The Canucks were said to be interested in him over the last few recent years.
Yep.
All of a sudden, they're not interested in him. I find that hard to believe.
Right.
Is he an ideal third line center, second line center? No, probably not. But what a nice insurance policy you have, right? Because all the wishing and hoping, it'd be nice to have a guy that, okay, maybe he's not the perfect fit as a center for us. Maybe we prefer him on the wing, but maybe like what happens if you get an injury to one of your top four centers? Now Max Sasson is playing in the lineup. Is he ready for that? You've got so many question marks there that I think it would be, if you're not going to acquire like a bona fide number two center, I think the next best thing is have a bunch of guys and someone maybe will step up. And I think having right now they don't have a lot of they don't have the high end guys there in their depth, and they don't have a lot of depth at center. So I think adding someone else probably makes some sense. Would you like a Mason McTavish? Of course. And the same thing with Marco Rossi, before he resigned. The question for me is, what is it going to cost?
Right.
Do the Canucks have the chips to spend on a deal like that? Right now, it seems hard for me to see a path where they bring in a guy like that. So, yeah, I still kind of wonder: does Roslovic still end up in Vancouver, but does he end up in Vancouver on a sweetheart deal at the end of training camp?
He might end up with a sweetheart deal. If you look, it was a weak center class for free agents. Robbie Fabry sitting around, he made 4 mil, and Roslovic only made 2.8. And that number will come down if he is sitting on his arse come what, mid-September. I'm trying to look up who his agent is. Trying to remember. Oh, Claude Lemieux is freaking Jack Roslovic's agent. How about that? So we'll
You'll
see
get
if
a greasy contract extension here.
we'll see if they pluck him. If they don't do anything, quite frankly, Rob, it's Dullsville right now in Vancouver. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that'll change because the media will generate something if they need to, because that's their tendency.
We wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm not necessarily grouping you in there, but it's like, okay, here's what we've got, here's what we're hoping for, and this is what we have moving forward, and let's give it your all. Uh, I'm picturing logically a 3-4 finish in the Pacific Division. I'm leaning more towards three. I think this is a playoff team, given what's happening around them. When you consider, especially considering probably eliminate still Anaheim, San Jose, Seattle. That gets you down to basically 5 teams in the division. Um, I like Vancouver's chances.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be tough to beat Vegas. It's going to be tough to beat Edmonton. But yeah, LA, I think is the team that a lot of people have circled of.
Might
Okay, they could
finally be
be
time.
they could be on the downswing.
Yeah,
Drew Doughty's another year older. Anze Kopitar's another year older.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, like
Calgary's a wild card.
yeah. I mean, we've seen teams like Calgary have a big year and then kind of take a bit of a step back. It seemed like they were a little bit ahead of schedule last season, so it'll be interesting to see how they perform. I think Anaheim's a team on the rise, but is it their time quite yet? Not so sure about that. Um, yeah, like San Jose is. It's not. I definitely don't see them leapfrogging the Canucks at this stage. Yeah, so much of it depends on health. So much of it depends on Thatcher Demko. If Demko is healthy, this is a really good team. So much depends on that center position. I mean, those are the two biggest things, with a bullet that are really going to decide the fate of this season. And also we're this deep into the to our chat, and we still haven't talked about Adam Foote. I mean, we got a new Canucks head coach. Yeah, he was on the bench before. They've also got a bunch of new assistant coaches. How does the coaching change this season? We saw, what Rick Tocchet did 2 years ago. He couldn't make a wrong move. Like everything he touched turned to gold. What kind of, how well are the Canucks going to be coached under this new staff? Untested, Foote was well liked by the
Huggy
Canucks and on how he ran the defense. But it's a different job taking over behind the bench and controlling everything to do with the team. So how does that look with a new head coach behind the bench?
communication style huge because Rick Tocchet and Craig Berube are two perfect examples. Good friends who played with the Philadelphia Flyers, who are old time hockey. Let's face it, they're both top 10 all time PIMs. Adam Foote was a jackass on the ice in terms of like nasty, like the whole 9 yards. Does he adapt a communication style that works? Because ultimately, that's what it comes down to in this day and age: is how well you communicate and develop, and all the different things that go into the modern player. Players that are a lot different mentally on the ice to a large extent than they were when the aforementioned players were on the ice, right? So that part of it is kind of the intangible in coach in terms of coaching communication. But as I threw out the name Huggy, is Quinn Hughes said he loves the guy when he was coaching the D. So if that translates, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think you can look at it a couple different ways. In one sense, okay, you've got the continuity there. I don't imagine that Adam Foote's going to be completely blowing up the playbook that Rick Tocchet had before. It's probably going to be similar
Yep.
systems and similar coaching style, and I think we're going to see a lot of the same from what we saw before. Conversely, you don't get that new coach bump, right? Sometimes you can see when a team gets a brand new coach with a totally different way of speaking to them, with a totally different style of play.
Yep.
It can unlock something in a team. Now it can go the other way too. Teams can take a step back, but I do sort of wonder, like, geez, what would this team, especially, I think a lot of people are going to wonder this if it doesn't go well under Adam Foote. What would this team have looked like with Manny Malhotra behind the bench, for instance? Like, what kind of energy? How is the energy different in training camp and coming to the season if you've got somebody completely new, not new to the organization, but new to most of these players? That would have been really interesting to see. But they've opted for Foote, and I think there's some merits to that as well, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, kind of a flat line transition. Robert, I think we got it covered. But wait, did you say they're a playoff team or not? Are you and the list?
I was
Come
sitting, I
on
was,
now.
I was sitting on the fence.
We were sitting on Fitz. And I know you're not a doctor, and there's no way we can predict health. But you already said you thought Petey
You
was going
know,
to bounce back.
you
So
know what? I think they, I
you're
think
up.
they, I think they are going to make the playoffs. I think that you go into a season like this, they're kind of flying under the radar. They're not the belle of the ball like they were
Yep.
1 year ago.
Yep.
I think that makes players hungrier. I think you're going to see players more focused. Um, and Can it go worse for Demko this year compared to last year? Can it go worse for Pettersson than it did last year? Those are two pretty important players on this roster. If they get more stability on the back end, that was a real problem until they made the trades late in last season. They should be better in those spots, and if they can hold the fort in a couple of other key areas, I think they return to the playoffs uh, next season because they didn't even come that far. They weren't that far off making the postseason in 2025. So hey, why not? I'm feeling off. August Rob is optimistic.
There you go. And
Yeah.
when you have Connor Garland on your team, I mean, when the littlest guy is setting the example in terms of working his ass off and motivation, all that good stuff, I think that goes a long, long way. And he signed his extension. So eats, breathes, craps hockey. Love the kid. Love, I must call him a kid. Love the guy. And I think he's a motivating factor in all this too. He's a good guy to have around. So good balance. We'll see. I agree with you on that. And we'll talk again once this campaign gets started. Until then, unless they pull the trigger, it's just Dullsville. 44 days, apparently, I saw on Twitter until the home opener. So fans have a little bit of time to contemplate or not. They have time to sit around and wait for it all to get underway. Thanks, Rob.
Good stuff. Can't wait. Thank you.
Rob Williams, Daily Hive. He's a sports editor and a writer extraordinaire. There he is.